All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. Now, one can make a case that the AFC North might be the most competitive division in the NFL, as there is simply no love lost between these teams. We saw three of these teams from the North get to the postseason last year, which included the Baltimore Ravens getting to the AFC Championship game. So you look at this contest today that took place between the Ravens and Bengals. And of course, both of these teams came in very desperate for a win. Cincinnati, after dropping their first three of the season, they picked up their first win of the year last week. And they were looking to build off of that as they're trying to get back into the race in the AFC North for the division. But then they had their hands full today with the Ravens. The Ravens team that lost their first two of the season before they won their last two to get to 500. So you look at this game today. Both of these teams desperately needed this game. The Ravens didn't want to fall to 2-3, and the Bengals did not want to fall to 0-4. And at the end of the day, you had two desperate teams rather taking the field today in Cincinnati in what could arguably have been the game of the year so far in the National Football League. I mean, this was a back and forth affair throughout. You look at the momentum swings. I mean, it was 14-7 in favor of Baltimore in the second quarter when Derrick Henry was stopped in the end zone for a safety to make it 14-9. And then just before the first half ended, Cincinnati scored a touchdown and went for the 2-point conversion to make it 17-14. Getting the ball to start the second half and getting another touchdown to go up 10 points. But every single time that the Bengals scored from that point on, the Ravens had an answer because Cincinnati had a 10-point lead in the second half three times today, twice in the fourth quarter, and they still could not close out the Ravens. Key mistakes coming down the stretch for the Bengals. You think about it when they were up 38-35 late, that interception by Joe Burrow, which helped to set up Baltimore for the game tying field goal to send this game into overtime. And you figure Cincinnati was looking to salt the game away at that point, and of course that interception was so key. This Ravens defense stepped up and made the play when they had to, and of course handing it over to Lamar Jackson and his offense to get Justin Tucker into scoring range. And then in overtime, the Ravens were driving. Lamar Jackson fumbled on the snap. And, getting the football back if you're Cincinnati in on the Ravens side of the field and failing to capitalize. You look at it, plain and simple, Cincinnati got too conservative. It's just like, okay, you know what? We've got Evan McPherson. I know Money McPherson's a good kicker, but at the end of the day, 50-plus yard field goals are not exactly a chip shot. I think that the Bengals should have continued to be aggressive at that point, saying, hey, let's make it get closer to making an easier field goal, or just try to score the touchdown altogether. And then, of course, I'm not putting this miss on Evan McPherson. It was more about the snap and the holder, because you could see the holder did not have a good hold of the football. Of course, the timing and the mechanics can easily throw off a kick. The rest is history. And then on the very next play, we saw Derrick Henry, who had been contained by the Cincinnati defense during regulation, explode for that big run, put the Ravens on the doorstep. Of course, Justin Tucker closed it out from that standpoint, and Baltimore left Cincinnati today with the 41-38 win. You look at this game, two of the better quarterbacks in the National Football League going back and forth. You think about it, Lamar Jackson, 26 of 42 through the air for 348 with four touchdowns and zero picks, and he also had 55 yards on the ground. And then Joe Burrow came into this game saying that the Bengals had to play perfect, and he darn near did play perfect, okay? As he was 30 of 39 for 392 with five touchdown throws, but unfortunately, that one interception. Derrick Henry, he finished with 92 yards on the ground, went over the 10,000-yard mark, and of course, the bulk of his yardage came in overtime. And that's the thing about King Henry. You can keep him down, but at some point, that guy's going to get going. And when he does, he is simply a runaway freight train. You look at like the key players on offense for both sides in this one. Jamar Chase had a big game, 10 catches for a buck 93 with 2 touchdown grabs. T. Higgins, 9 catches for 83 yards and a pair of touchdown grabs. Zay Flowers for Baltimore, 7 catches for a buck 11. At the end of the day, you look at it, this Bengals defense was only able to sack Lamar Jackson one time. They put pressure on him. They had him dead to rights more often than not, but they could not seal the deal. And with a guy like Lamar Jackson, you cannot give him extra opportunities because guess what? He's going to go out there and make you pay. Like I said before, both teams needed this game. And if you're the Ravens, 3-2 sounds a lot better, okay, than 2-3. It's unfortunately for the Bengals, it's another heartbreaking loss. And of course, this trend has continued this year. We've seen them begin the season with the tough loss at home to New England, the heartbreaking loss in Week 2 at Kansas City, the tough loss on Monday night to Washington, and then of course today. So at 1-4, the question is going to be, can these Bengals right the ship and get their season turned around? I mean, at this point, they're not a good football team. They're not playing good football because they're doing the things that bad football teams do. And what bad football teams do, they find ways to lose these games instead of finding ways to winning them. That is why Cincinnati is 1-4 at this point. On the flip side, if you're Baltimore, listen, you got yourself in the early hole to begin this season, but now you're on the other side of 500. And depending on how things work out in tonight's Sunday night affair between the Steelers and Cowboys, Baltimore could find themselves tied for first place in the AFC North. You look at Cincinnati; they still, they're going to try to go out there and rebound for 1-4. A lot of talent on that team. It starts on Sunday night rather, next week when they travel to take on the New York Giants, a team that's 2-3 themselves. They're then on the road for Cleveland, and then they host Philadelphia. So these are the next 3 games that Cincinnati has to look forward to as they try to get back on track. And like I said, if you're the Ravens, after that slow start, you've gotten your running game going, and that's the key. You don't bring in Derrick Henry just to sit up there and have him be a spectator and have Lamar Jackson be the team's leading rusher. Lamar Jackson can no longer be the Ravens' leading rusher. Is he a talented runner? Absolutely. But this is why you bring in a guy like Derrick Henry to take some of that stress off of number 8 and let King Henry do his thing. So now the Ravens have 3 wins in a row under their belt. And of course, it's time next Sunday for that Beltway battle when they host the Washington Commanders, which I do think is going to be a very exciting affair. Nonetheless, this was a thriller this afternoon in Cincinnati. Both teams gave spirited efforts. Both teams played good enough to win, but unfortunately, if you're the Bengals, it was the Ravens that came out on top. So let's see how Baltimore is able to build off of this, and let's see if Cincinnati can rebound and find themselves on the right track. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.